Hello everyone, Giltar here with a model kit review. This time we'll be looking at the 1 to 144 scale high-grade Universal Sentry RMS 141 Zeku 1. This is a mobile suit from the Gundam Sentinel series of Gundam Fiction. There's actually three variations. Here what we basically see is the Type 2, which is a beam smart gun, and retails for 1,600 yen, or roughly $17 to $18 American. And as you can see right now, it's posed right beside the high-grade Universal Sentry model kit size. Now, according to the specifications, it lists the Zeku 1 as about a 20.05 meter mobile suit. So obviously, it is a bit taller than the 18.5 RX-78 shoulder parts is missing. I removed it for just the purposes of this review, and just to show you guys that these components are removable, and you don't actually have to have them on there if you don't want. Now getting into the accessories, we already saw one. Now this shoulder unit is basically an ammo drum for this machine gun accessory here. And as you can see on the back, it does have an ammo belt that feeds into the back of this drum on its right shoulder. Both of these drums are identical. When you position them on the Zeku 1's left shoulder, the ammo drum feed port is on the front, whereas if you put on the left shoulder, or its right shoulder, it's actually on the back. So you can actually change and switch these around if you wanted to. They're identical. And they are secured in two ways. The first way is a peg that goes into a polycap port or socket at the top of the shoulder armor, and then it's further secured by having these dark gray plastic bits clip onto the drum, and then the other peg here clips into the shoulders. There's a port on the front and on the back of the shoulder arm. Some nice height and mass to the model kit. The second accessory would be beam sabers. Now on the left arm's plastic piece, and you just basically clip it on to the shield, and it doesn't do anything else. There's no functionality to it. It's purely for display. Kit, single molded piece, blade and hilt. The hilt itself is cubic. It's not cylindrical like the traditional, so you will have to paint it to make it basically accurate, or better looking at least. Another point of interest while I'm at it is that the polycap runner has a lot of leftover pieces, so I suspect that this is a polycap runner that is shared with other model kits in the early high-grade Universal Sentry lineup, which was more common back then. These days we have specifically, runners that are made for certain model designs, unless they're like essentially repaints or slight retoolings. Now the final accessory for this model is this machine gun. It's specified as a 122 ammo belt is bendable. It will retain its shape. I would caution that if you guys get this kit and you bend it around, don't play around with it too much. I assume that after some time of manipulating and bending it back and forth, you'll basically weaken the plastic, and it'll basically deteriorate and probably crack and break at some point. The machine gun itself is quite large and imposing. Not a lot of detail on the surface, but some nice sculpting nevertheless. I like the look of it because it does look like more of a conventional weapon. It doesn't look like some sort of space sci-fi weapon from like the far distant future in another galaxy. This looks something that's more plausible in design. It's composed of three components. The machine gun body itself is two halves that snap together, and then the front part of the barrel here is just you clip it on, and then of course you have the ammo belt. Now this hand here, the trigger finger hand, has a nice interesting touch here for articulation. The index finger, or basically trigger finger, something that also is seen in the Rick Diaz, or the Dom models in the high-grade Universal Sentry lineup. Pretty interesting to see articulated hands on a 1 to 144 scale kit so early on. Again, October of 2001 is when this was released. Now as far as articulation, pretty standard. The feet do have limited movement front and back and side to side, but it can get some decently wide leg poses while remaining with the soles of the feet flat on the surface. It can rotate 360 degrees with no problems. The ankle armor, the thruster bit, and like the propellant tanks on the back don't get in the way at all. I'll move on to the front skirt next, because they are two separate pieces and they come as separate pieces, so you don't even have to clip them apart or anything. The side skirts, which actually house more thrusters, just swivel slightly, and the back skirt armor is immobile. The leg can move up that far in the front, so pretty decent for something this chunky. With the back movement not that far due to the which is pretty decent considering the largeness of the bend front and back, not really side to side, and rotation is pretty limited because of the way that these pipes and front part of the torso get in the way of the waist armor, but actually pretty good for something like this. The shoulders themselves peg straight in, so there's no movement at the torso, front or back or up and down, but the shoulder itself and the shoulder armor are on polycap hinges, so there is movement there, and for the arm itself. It can't go really high unless you move the shoulder, well actually, no, even if you move the shoulder shield out of the way, it still can't move that far, so it is limited in terms of, or shoulder armor shield piece here can rotate freely as long as you don't have a drum at the top. And finally, the head itself can nod just a little bit and turn that much if it has a drum there, and I think turn a little, oh no, I guess that's all it can turn, because the head itself is quite elongated, as you can see. Samurai-ish helmet, Kabuto. Now as far as the model kit itself, I have applied no stickers or painting or panel lining. To give you guys an idea of what the face looks like, as you can see, it actually does have a mono eye sticker. I've just chosen not to put it in, and even if I do put it in, I mean the actual face itself is quite small in relation to the rest of the head. It does come with extra hands. There's an open posed hand for some interesting poses, or for like holding on to or gripping the machine gun. There's also a fist hand for gripping the other beam saber. Again, we have a pair of them and then just a pair of hilts here. Now as far as the model kit pros and cons, I would say there's really two cons, and they are related. It's the fact that it does have limited articulation due to the bulk of the design of the mobile suit. Not so much an issue with the design of the model kit, because we have something with such large proportions, it will hinder articulation. And the second issue is the weakness of the connections of the hands. And while it's fine for this hand that's really just for posing, when we have the trigger finger hand gripping this gun, and basically if you try to pose it in anything that's more, I guess, imaginative, aside from just sort of gripping it under the arm, it will cause the hand to pop out, and it gets in the way. Simply because the peg for the hand is a straight peg, it doesn't go in at an angle, and the machine gun itself is quite straightforward as well. It really just, there's no sculpting here that aids the positioning of the gun so that it gets out of the way of the arm, and so in that respect, you're stuck with a single basic position when holding the gun, and combined with limited articulation, you get a pretty boring figure for posing. However, keep in mind this is a 2001 model kit, and model kits for the most part are not action figures. They're not meant to be superposable, and the more modern kits that we have are really remarkable if you really consider the history of model kits in general. Now, as far as the good points, I'd say if you're someone who likes the Dom designs, or the D is a great model for your collection. It definitely looks big and bulky, and for its scale, it towers over an average mobile suit, to be honest. And in that, if you're a person who likes larger figures or model kits, if you like the physical presence that you get from such model kits, this is one that is going to be pretty acceptable for you. It's big, it's bulky, and it just has an imposing look. It's not intricately detailed, but the sculpt itself has a lot of nice sculpting, and a lot of extra bits like propellant tanks, a bunch of thrusters everywhere. I mean, the added effect of the ammo drums really adds to the bulk and the sort of intimidating presence of the Zeku lines. And the gun itself is pretty neat because, you know, it comes with an ammo belt, and that's not too common for Gundam model kits. And so I would say overall, despite its few flaws, I think it's a worthy addition to any Mobile Suit Gundam fan, and especially if you're a fan of the Universal Century designs. Again, the physical presence from the sheer size of the model kit can be seen as a bonus. It's not too expensive, and I got this one for on sale actually. I got it for around $10, I think. So just keep an eye out if you're looking for this model kit, and you can get at least a couple of dollars off. It's well worth your time. Pretty basic in design, but I think with some painting and panel lining, I hope you guys enjoyed this review and got something out of it. And I'll see you guys next time at another review.